Keanu Reeves is one of the busiest men in Hollywood, and at 57 years old, he shows no signs of slowing down just yet. With a couple of mega franchises already under his belt, as well as a ton of other movies, Reeves has recently been linked to his next project. Today we're discussing reports that Keanu Reeves is currently working on a Formula One series for Disney+. So stay right where you are. First up, let's have a quick look at what Reeves has been up to recently. After a few bit-part movies in the 1980s, Reeves burst onto the scene with 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and literally hasn't stopped since. Known mostly for his roles as Neo in the Matrix franchise, as well as the titular John Wick, Reeves has sold himself as somewhat of an action superstar. After starring in John Wick back in 2014, he has since made 3 more movies in the franchise, the latest of which drops next year, but he has also been busy with other projects. DC League of Super Pets will drop later this month, which features Reeves in the role of Bruce Wayne, Batman, whilst last year saw the release of the 4th movie in the Matrix franchise. He also appeared in the Matrix Awakens video game last year, providing the voice of Neo. Of course, Reeves has slowed down a touch in recent years as he has been used to releasing 3, 4, or even 5 films a year, but of course, the global pandemic slowed down the whole industry. But now things have gotten back to some sort of normality. We can probably expect to see a lot more of our old mate, Keanu. What have you guys made of Reeves' recent career and his career in general? Give us your thoughts and opinions below. So what about this F1 docuseries? Let's see. As most people well know, Keanu is a self-proclaimed motorbike nut, but if recent reports are anything to go by, he is also a fan of speed machines of the 4-wheeled variety, particularly Formula One. The John Wick actor has been spotted at more than a few F1 events this season, and one recent report has also suggested there is a reason for his presence at the races. He is apparently working on a new docuseries which will focus on Brawn GP. The team was founded out of the carnage of the 2008 financial crisis, with Honda pulling out of F1 but leaving all of its infrastructure in place. And one man in particular came to the rescue. Ross Brawn bought the team for £1, which also allowed him to rename the team Brawn GP, winning the F1 title with Jenson Button in the hot seat the following year. The team was then sold to Mercedes in 2010, which is now morphed into what we know today as Mercedes-AMG Petronas. Although the team was only around for a year, the tale is pretty interesting. Interesting enough for Disney Plus to sanction a docuseries. And it will also feature interviews with those who were there, including Brawn himself, as well as Button and teammate Rubens Barrichello. We're still uncertain as to when it might drop, but don't expect to see it for some time, as it hasn't even been officially announced yet. Will you guys be tuning in when this one airs? Give us your thoughts below. Next up, an interesting John Wick tale. As we know, Keanu is known for his recent portrayal of the uber-violent John Wick, the vigilante-turned-mass murderer who completely flipped out over a car and a dog. But it might have all been very different. Originally, the role was written for a senior actor, someone in the vein of Clint Eastwood or Harrison Ford, which was outlined in a new book from the producer of the franchise, Basil Iwanek, called They Shouldn't Have Killed His Dog: The Complete Uncensored Ass-Kicking Oral History of John Wick, Gun Fu, and the New Age of Action, which is quite the tongue twister. Iwanek tells of how they initially wanted an older star, but when he gave the script to his friend Jim Darmody, who also incidentally represents Reeves, he decided to alter the script a little. He says Darmody asked him if he had any action roles for Reeves, before going on to say, "I remember thinking to myself, Keanu is one of the great action stars of the last 25 years. What happened to him? What's he been doing?" And he was directing his movie Man of Tai Chi and doing 47 Ronin. We give him the script, we tell him, clearly, you're not 75. Once Reeves was on board, it was reportedly the man himself who changed the character into what we know today because he loved the script so much. How different it all could have been, right? What do you guys think? We're discussing a long-held dream of Reeves now. Stay tuned. At the recent premiere of the upcoming DC League of Super Pets, Keanu Reeves was discussing one of his acting dreams. Speaking to a reporter from Extra, Reeves outlined one role he would like more than any other: Batman. Of course, that role is currently occupied by Twilight actor Robert Pattinson, which Reeves acknowledged, saying that Pattinson is doing an awesome job. But he did go on to muse that if ever DC needed an older Batman, he would be there to fill in. He said, it's been a dream. Pattinson's got Batman right now and he's doing awesome. Maybe down the road, maybe when they need an older Batman. Would you guys like to see Reeves in the role of Batman? Give us your thoughts below. Next up, Keanu has personally recommended recommended some action movies. Stay with us. Ever found yourself scrolling through Netflix or other streaming services for what seems like an eternity, trying to find a cool action movie? Well, search no more. We've got you. Our man Keanu has recently shared some tips for a great action-packed watch, and given the fact that he is the star of two of the very best action franchises in recent years, it's safe to say he knows what he's talking about. Reeves had been asked for a list of some family-friendly movies by one of his Matrix co-stars, Carrie-Anne Moss, and the list of 18 included 6 action movies. Somewhat surprisingly, for a man of Reeves' renowned humility, the most recent movie on the list was actually one of his own, The Bad Batch, in which he starred alongside Jason Momoa of Game of Thrones fame, as well as Suki Waterhouse and Jim Carrey. The film is a thriller following a young woman captured by cannibals in a desert dystopia. The other films on the list were Luc Besson's La Femme Nikita, George Miller's 1982 classic Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, another Luc Besson classic, and 1994's Leon, The Professional, and Rollerball by Norman Jewison. The final movie on the list is many people's greatest action movie of all time, Seven Samurai, which went on to inspire a generation of filmmakers, including Tarantino and the Godfather great Francis Ford Coppola. What did you guys make of Keanu's tips? And now, a heartwarming exchange between Keanu and a fan. Accosted recently at the airport by a young fan, Keanu was subjected to a barrage of questions by the boy, who wanted to know everything from why he had been at the F1 to where he lives. The exchange was actually documented by TV producer Andrew Kimmel, who said of Reeves' behavior towards the fan that little moments like this can make such a difference in people's lives. Once the boy had begun to run out of questions, Reeves didn't miss a beat and quickly picked up the slack, firing back a range of questions from, "Why were you in Europe?" When the boy replied that he had been visiting Paris, Keanu asked him, "What galleries did you go to in Paris?" And then, "What was your favorite?" I mean, what a guy. He clearly didn't have to do this, but went out of his way to make the kid's day. Probably year, actually. Have you ever met a movie star? Let us know who below. And finally, Keanu has recently been spotted out with his girlfriend, Alexandra Grant. Stay tuned. Reeves and Grant, who have been dating since 2019, were recently pictured strolling through JFK on their way to catch a flight last week. And Keanu, ever the humble citizen, was actually pictured pushing the couple's own luggage. I mean, when you consider the fact that some current stars wouldn't be seen dead pushing their own luggage through an airport, this tells you all you need to know about what a legend Keanu actually is. Looking casual and relaxed, Keanu was sporting a gray suit with a red cap, his signature long hair poking out the sides, and Alexandra was spotted in a knit jumper and sunglasses. It was all a very relaxed affair. It's rare to see glimpses of Keanu's private life, as he tends to shy away from sharing details, but this was a lovely insight into his relatively new relationship. Who is your favorite A-lister? Let us know below. As always, thanks for joining us today, and remember to stop by again next time when we will be reviewing all sorts of different bits and pieces. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye, guys.